kaitseministeeriumi ametnik Herman Simm, keda kahtlustatakse riigireetmises. Riigiprokuratuuri teatel kogus ja edastas Simm salajast teavet välisriigile. Politsei vahistas ka Simmi abikaasa Simmi, keda kahtlustatakse riigireetmisele kaasaaitamises.
This is the most senior Russian spy in NATO that has come out for some years.
Ma arvan, et asjaomased ringkonnad ei kujutanud ette esialgu, milline pomm see võib üldse olla.
Esimene mõte oli see, et issand jumal, see inimene teadis nii palju. Et see on väga halb.
Ajab mind üsna vihaseks, kui ma mõtlen, mida ta võis venelastele anda.
Ta lihtsalt võtab ja hävitab tegelikult kümnete, sadade, sealjuures ka iseenda tööd.
See Herman Simm, keda me kõik tundsime, see on surnud ja see Herman Simm, kes selle endise Herman Simmi ära tappis, seda me tunda ei taha.
Ta on meie perekonnanime ära rikkunud ja kõik ma olin kohe nii pahane sellest tema peale. Ma olin kohe täitsa pahane.
Before the double cross was exposed, only a few people were aware of the 62-year-old gray-haired official. There was even less awareness of the fact that Herman Simm's job was to guard the secrets that moved between NATO, the world's biggest military alliance, and small Estonia. This is the story of how a highly decorated top official, who was among the most trustworthy, transformed behind a respectable facade into a traitor, who worked for Russian intelligence for over 13 years and sold off thousands of secrets. Several players in this incident appear in this film for the first time. Also, for the first time in the history of espionage, an exposed Russian agent comments, on camera, his story himself.
Ei oleks mina olnud, oleks võib-olla keegi teine olnud ja teinud võib-olla veel suuremaid vigu.
I swear to remain true, till the end, to my nation, the Soviet government, and the Soviet homeland. In the fall of 1966, Herman joins the Soviet police without telling his family. This is scandalous, since basically the same organ had at one time repressed his family. His relatives had been hunted down and deported.
Person whose family had suffered so much under the Soviet occupation originally, then coming back to serve the successor to the regime that had done his family and his country so much damage. So there's a personal drama.
Jah, meile muidugi see ei meeldinudki, et ta veel siis sinna miilitsasse jooksupoisiks läks. See oli jah kõigile šokk ja see ta hukutas ka nüüd. Kui ma tagantjärgi mõtlen kõik, et oleks ta olnud teine elukutse või teine amet olnud, siis seda jama ei oleks seda juhtunud, mis juhtunud on ja.
Deklaratsioon NSV suveräänsuse kohta on vastu võetud.
At the end of the 80s, the winds of perestroika are sweeping across the Soviet Union. Simm, who is now a police lieutenant colonel and deputy to the head of the security administration, is, considering his official position, expressing surprisingly strong Estonian sentiments. Herman Simm is soon making a career for himself in the law enforcement establishment of the New Estonia. In March of 1993, he is appointed police prefect of Harjumaa County. Simm is on the spot no matter whether it's a bomb explosion or a hostage drama.
No ma umbes 40-50 laipa leidsin vähemalt oma piirkonnas metsades ja šahtides ja kaevandustes ja igal pool.
The eager prefect's operation, which even attracted international attention, is the taking over of the city of Paldiski, which had been in the hands of the Red Army for almost 50 years. He observes the departure of the Russian forces and arranges for the security of the removal of nuclear fuel from the submarine training center.
Ma annaksin end teie meelevalla alla ja püüan vastata nii, kuidas ma oskan nendele küsimustele.
2 months after this operation, Simm is offered the post of Director General of the Estonian Police, making him the highest-ranking police officer in the nation. The new Director General beams at his press conference like a brand-new millionaire.
Ma oskan sellele vastata ainult niimoodi, et minu teada ükski peadirektor ei ole määranud oma tööoleku aega. Ja seda määravad ikkagi teised inimesed, kes teda tööle võtavad ja ka vallandavad.
Although he officially leaves in May of 1995 of his own accord, he has actually been fired. At first, Simm has himself appointed to the police reserve and then goes on to become a pensioner. But he isn't idle for long. In August 1995, Simm goes to work for the Defense Ministry in the insignificant position of Director of the Analysis Bureau, the influence and importance of which no one could at that time predict. At that moment, it is still 9 years till Estonia's accession to NATO. After moving to the Ministry of Defense, Simm disappears from public view. In the course of the next 13 years, he devotes himself to a seemingly spotless career in a discreet position, establishing a secret information exchange and control system between Estonia and NATO. When Simm leaves his responsible position, respects are paid by many esteemed individuals from both Estonia and abroad. Among the gift givers is Prime Minister Andris Ansip. Even a laudatory press release is issued. The 62-year-old former keeper of the secrets leaves the ministry in the spring of 2008.
Tere õhtust! Aktuaalne kaamera esmaspäeval 22. septembril. Vahistati Kaitseministeeriumi endine tippametnik Herman Simm, keda kahtlustatakse riigireetmises. Väidetavalt müüs Simm salajast infot Venemaale.
On September 19, 2008, the former senior official is arrested along with his wife, since they are suspected of selling thousands of secret documents and information to Russia. The press is in turmoil. Prime Minister Ansip now calls Simm a scoundrel and finds that even the maximum punishment would be too lenient for him. All this is being followed from the side by the woman who raised him.
Kummaline jah, kuidas kõik nii halvasti välja kukub. Mõtled küll, et kõik on hästi, aga lõpuks on kõik pahasti.
It is interesting to note that in his interviews, Herman has left the impression that his aunt, who brought him up, is dead. But actually, 86-year-old Vaike Simm lives in Tallinn and is a systematic diary keeper.
September 22, 28, mis siin on 22. Esmaspäev, sügise algus, päike paistab, tuul on idast, pluss 16 kraadi oli sel päeval sooja. Kell 10 helistas Asta Kärtner näost ja teatas, et uudisest kuulis, et Herman on arreteeritud. No ma ei kirjutanud, et mõlemad, seepärast, et ma lühendatult kirjutan, et ja, see võtab palju ruumi ja peab palju arreteeritud. Tundis mulle kaasa, siis helistas Mall. Erna Viljandist helistas, Stella helistas, vaadake kui palju helistas. Terve päeva iga tunni tagant igast uudistest, TV-st ja raadiost oli uudised. Uudis number 1, Hermani riigi reetmine. Uudis number 1 olen ma nii võimärkinud. Olen väga õnnetu, ainult taeva isa saab mind aidata eluga toime tulla. Au, kiitus ja tänu igavesele isale. Kõik.
How and when did Herman Simm become an agent? Since we cannot see the files in Russia, we have to believe Simm's version. Herman Simm himself claims that his collaboration with the Soviet Union's biggest secret service, the KGB, began in 1958, when he was deputy director of the security department.
Nendel oli vaja teatud operatsioone teha teinekord, tõesti valvatavatele objektidele sisse pääseda oma tehnika ülespanekuks või midagi muud. Tähendab, näiteks mis mul tuli teinekord teha, oli see, et näiteks kui mingilt objektilt tuleb häire teatud kellast teatud kellani, see oli väga täpselt kooskõlastatud, siis ma samal ajal olin seal kuskil puldis või sellises kohas, kuhu see häirisignaal tuli ja lihtsalt ütlesin, et me seda ei edasta, minu vastutus.
Also, the KGB controlled all of Simm's business trips, as well as his extensive international circle of acquaintances.
Jälkiviisana totesin sen, että että Neuvostoliiton systeemi oli se, että näissä miehitysmaissa niin jonnekin viraston ylimmäksi johtajaksi laitettiin paikallinen ja kakkoseksi laitettiin KGB-ihminen. Kun mietittiin Estin virasto- ja neuvostoajalla, niin aika hyvin pätee tämäkin paikkansa. Ja tietysti mulla olisi pitänyt hälytyskello soida siinä suhteessa, mutta Hermanin suhteen ei kyllä hälyttänyt mikään.
In the fall of 1989, the local KGB, sensing the winds of change, prepares to retreat. Less important documents are burned in the furnace of the Pagadi Street headquarters, while the more important ones are secretly taken to Russia. Among them are the files of people who had been recruited by the KGB. The end arrives quicker than anyone had predicted. On December 18, 1991, the agreement is signed that eliminates the KGB in Estonia. 3 days later, the empire, known as the Soviet Union, officially ceases to exist. Agent Simm is temporarily without a master.
Ja kui 1991 Eesti taasiseseisvus, siis esitas ta küsimuse oma agendijuhile, et mis temast saab. Ja agendijuhi väite kohaselt on kõik hästi, et mitte mingisugused dokumente ei ole säilinud, et sa võid rahulikult oma eluga edasi elada, mitte midagi ei juhtu.
Therefore, when the Estonian police force is re-established on October 5, 1992, Simm, without any qualms, gives an oath that he hasn't been a member of the KGB or its agent. He could have confessed to the security police, as many others did, but he doesn't.
Mitte midagi mul ei olnud pihtinud eriti sellist asja. Seda, et kuskil seal ma, ütleme, mingisuguses operatsioonis osalesin, andke andeks. Sellisel juhul ma usun, et praegu peaks ka pool Riigikogu olema, mitte seal, kus nad on.
I suspect that if Herman Simm had confessed to the level of what seems to have been his collaboration with the KGB in the 1980s, it probably would not have stopped him being a policeman and maybe quite a good detective, but I think it would have been inconceivable that he would have been in a position to have a bearing on real national security.
Simm ei käinud ennast üles andmas, mis tähendas seda, et hell koht oli leitud.
Thus, re-independent Estonia's highest police official had actually been a KGB agent in the fading regime.
Mis moodi see töö välja kukub, eks selle hindajaks ja kriitika tegijateks olete ka teie.
But his former masters are just waiting for the right moment. And it appears in the spring of 1995 when the Estonian police director's General Simm is fired amid scandals. In the press, stories appear about his corrupt deals, his professional incompetence, as well as his weird phobia about being followed. Simm ends his relationship with the police and goes, in June 1995, on vacation to Tunisia. His low is made even worse by the tensions that exist between him and his young companion, so that he goes south alone.
Ma läksin Eestist ära, et siit sellest ilkumisest eemale pääseda. Siin Eesti meedia oli sel ajal päris tigedalt mu kallal kogu aeg. Ehkki ma ei näinud endal mingit süüd.
Russian intelligence, which had been carefully keeping an eye on him, finds that Simm is now ripe for waking up. This is the critical moment.
To use a acting metaphor, it's like asking someone to marry you. You theoretically are not going to ask her until you're sure she's going to say yes. If you think they're not going to agree to it, then of course you don't do it.
Frank Sparhawk, who had worked for the American CIA for more than 20 years, says that the key to this story is hidden specifically in psychology. After Simm had been resting in Sussex for a couple of days, he runs one evening on the street into an acquaintance from Tallinn.
Привет. Привет.
This greeter is the former KGB employee and the present Russian Foreign Intelligence Service SVR officer, Valery Zentsov. Simm knows him by sight since Soviet times.
Kõige esimene hetk oli kerge paanika, sellepärast, et siis mulle sai osaliselt ka see niinimetatud jälitamine sai nagu selgeks, mis pärast mind oli nii palju tundma õpitud. Ja mitte ainult mind, vaid ka teisi inimesi, kes mulle kallid olid. See tuli nagu jutu käigus tuli väga täpselt välja. Teati kõik.
Simm claims that this dear person was his daughter Christine, who had just been 21 at the time. Investigators find that this is just self-justification, since a long-term agent cannot be recruited through threats and blackmail.
You're looking for the long term, you have to trust the person, you need reliability, and you yourself are at exposure in this relationship. It's better to start on a positive note with mutual trust and mutual interests, so that what you are delivering in this espionage relationship to the other person is something that they want.
According to investigators, Simm was motivated by a combination of disillusionment, vanity, and greed.
Et seal ei olnud sellist ühte kindlat motiivi, et see oleks olnud kindlasti puhas omakasu, et ainult raha eest tegi.
Oma loomuselt oli ta lihtsalt antud hetkel, kui talle ligi astuti, solvunud Eesti riigi peale ja kui kurb see ka ei ole, nõustus kohe salajasele kaastööle.
Tõepoolest tema juurde tuldigi ja öeldi, et siin ühele poole läheb see tee, et sa töötad meiega koos, selles mõttes, et teed ühte, teist ja kolmandat, saad selle eest raha ka, aga siin ootavad kõrged kohad, palju reisimist, ilus elu. Aga vaat siin see teine tee on see, et kui hakatakse tõepoolest rääkima sinu endisest KGB minevikust, siis ei ole sul seda teed, sa ei saa kunagi olema Eestis kõrge NATO-t esindav ametnik, sul ei tule suurepäraseid välisreise ja nii edasi ja raha ei saa sa ka ammugi. Ja võib-olla kui selle kõige keskel inimene siis mõtles, et siis ta tegigi oma valikud. Ja võib-olla see ongi selline kuradile sõrme andmise teema, et kui see esimene samm oli tehtud, et ülejäänud oli juba lumepalli efekt.
According to Simm, this fateful confidential conversation lasts for 3 or 4 beers. But in this description of the meeting in Tunisia, there are many unanswered questions. For instance, why did the Russians, in June 1995, recruit an unemployed and disgraced police chief? Was this just a chance coincidence? Or did they know that a couple of months later, Simm would become a defense ministry official with a great future? But Simm and the security police are convinced in the reliability of the Tunisia story. Simm again meets with the Russian intelligence resident a couple of months later in Tallinn. Simm is working in the Defense Ministry as the head of the Information Analysis Bureau. Defense Minister Andres Oval, who hired him, recalls for the press, being able to hire the Director General of the police force for the ministry is like winning the lotto. Actually, Russian intelligence was the lotto winner.
Ja ütleme perspektiiviga lotovõik, sest tol momendil ta ei omanud seda staatust, mida aastal 2002 või 2005.
Simm, who by 1996 has become the director of the Defense Ministry's Security Department, is at the same time busy fulfilling tasks assigned by Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. His job is to see to it that secrets won't leak, but he himself photographs in the ministry secret documents. He uses a completely ordinary camera that the Russians gave him money to buy.
Praktiliselt kõik, mis oli, ühtegi asja ei tohtinud olla erivahendeid või mingisugused spetsiifilised asjad. Kõik pidi olema standard kauplusest kätte saada.
just as easy as making the photographs at work is how Simm walks out with his booty. The chance of getting caught is practically nil.
Reglement panebki teatud piirangud igasuguste kaamerate, fotoaparaatide ja muu sellise salvestusvahendite lubamatu sissetoomise üle. Aga inimene, kes selle üle järelevalvet pidas, oli Herman Simm.
Although Simm meets with his case officer 3 or 4 times a year, he does not give the secretly copied materials over directly, but leaves the film or memory device in an agreed-upon hiding place, or as they say in spy parlance, a dead drop. One of them is located in Tallinn, in Nõmme, at the corner of Ravela and Lona streets, in a tiny park.
Sealt poolt tulin. Siia parempoolse selle repitääbidena taha, siia pidin panema siis konteineri.
Mingi alla näidake?
Siia maha. No umbes niimoodi, meeter sellest.
Sinna ta siis jättis informatsiooni Vene luure jaoks, mis omakorda pärast ära võeti. Ta pidi olema sellises kohas, kus on mugav seda panna, mugav ära võtta, nii et kõrvalised pilgud seda ei näeks.
Siia panin 200 grammise mahlapaki, kus oli filmi sees 1 või 2.
As a container, Simm would often use an empty juice packet, which to the casual observer looks just like discarded litter. He would leave such a packet for the Russians, for instance, in the brush at the gates of the Tallinn Botanical Gardens. The dead drop is emptied within a couple of hours, and for security reasons is used only once. Communicating, except for the meetings, takes place as rarely as possible, and even then in code.
Et varjata oma isikut, pidi ta minema sellise telefoniautomaadi juurde, kus eriti ei olnud võimalik tuvastada, et tema sealt helistab, see tähendab, seal ei tohtinud olla ümber videokaameraid, talle anti kindlad šifrid ehk numbrikombinatsioonid, iga numbrikombinatsioon tähendas mingisugust sõnumit, ta sisestas selle telefoniautomaadist sisse ja see sõnum jõudis siis residendini küllaltki lühikese ajaga. Ja siis oli teada, kas kohtumine toimub samal ajal samas kohas või on midagi vahele tulnud ja kohtumine jääb ära. Ja kui oli oht, siis samamoodi kindel šifri numbri kombinatsioon ja kohtumine jääb ära.
Kus see märk on paremale.
In Saue, a few blocks from Simm's home, there is a telephone pole on the corner of Ridva Street where the Russians can, in an emergency, leave a message.
See oli nagu niinimetatud sidetulp, kui siia ilmus valge triidiga tõmmatud joon, siis see tähendab seda, et järgmisel selle nädala laupäeval pidin vähemalt korra nädalas siit kaudu tulema, et ma näeks seda. Ja siis ma pidin minema, see oli erakorraline väljakutse, pidin minema Nõmme jaama laupäeva õhtul.
The closer that Estonia's accession to the European Union and NATO gets, the more Western allies' secrets pass through Simm's hands, and the influence of the department headed by him increases.
Simm täitis oma tööülesandeid sellise silma nähtava agarusega. Ja loomulikult, kui sa oled spioon ja töötad samal ajal oma riigi julgeolekustruktuurides, siis sa ei saa endale ühtegi eksimust lubada.
registrid olid alati tipp-topp korras, kõik kontrollid, kes käisid Kaitseministeeriumit kontrollimas, olid alati väga rahul. Ja me mäletame, et samal ajal mõnes muus ministeeriumis valitses selline kergelt boheemlik ja üliõpilaslik korralagedus. Et sellisel moel suutis ta luua endale kindlasti väga hea, ütleme siis katte, meile varjus teha palju kurja.
Tähendab see, mida ma tegin oma igapäevast tööd. Ma tegin seda niivõrd korralikult ja korrektselt, et seal ei olnud mingit põhjust kellegi midagi kahtlustada.
Ühest küljest oli ta justkui naiivne, rõõmsameelne, usin, hea tahk onu, kes tundus olema väga tänulik, et tal on selline tähtis amet. Ja teisest küljest tundus, et temas on ka selline, ütleme, võimu ahne, ambitsioonikus, soov olla luuraja, operatiivtöötaja, mingisugune juht.
And Simm's secret desires fulfilled. In 2001, a seemingly boring administrative development takes place that is of significant importance from the standpoint of the movement of strategic information. The former Soviet cop and KGB secret agent becomes the Estonian nation's official representative at what is known in NATO's parlance as the NSA, the National Security Agency.
Tehti küll üks katse leida NSA kohale keegi noorem inimene ja esmajoones eriti keegi inglise keelt rääkiv inimene. Aga erinevatel põhjustel see ei õnnestunud ja Simm võttis rõõmuga selle ameti vastu.
The NSA position is little known, but important, since through it, correspondence containing military secrets passes to Estonia from all of NATO's 28 member states.
Simmil näiteks oli esiteks ülesanne olla omamoodi Eesti suursaadik teiste riikide ja ka organisatsioonide nagu NATO ja Euroopa Liit juures küsimustes just, mis puudutas salastatud teabekaitset.
Simm is the head of the post office for secret information, but unlike a regular letter carrier, he also has the right to check if the sensitive papers which have been delivered are being dealt with in accordance with the regulations.
Sisuliselt NSA vastutab ju kogu riigi eest, kogu riigis liikuva teabe eest teatud valdkondades. NSA ju kontrollib ju kõiki asutusi, kaasa arvatud ka Kaitsepolitseiamet, Teabeamet, kõik muud.
Espionage on alati ohtlik ja me ei tea, milline on just nimelt see infokild, mis vaenlase kätte sattudes või potentsiaalselt pahatahtliku riigi kätte sattudes võib osutuda otsustavaks ja tekitada just nimelt selle erakordselt suure kahju.
Kui mu käest käisid läbi 10 000 dokumendid. Julgelt.
This means that Russian intelligence wins the lotto twice. It would be difficult to hope for a better job for a spy. Moscow now has access to not only the defense force of tiny Estonia, but also to the Western allies. Does Simm even remember how many papers he copied and leaked?
Tõesti mäleta, sest ma teinekord ei lugenudki seda.
But Simm doesn't seem to regret anything.
Vaadake, öelge meile, kes on meie sõbrad. Teiseks, luures ei tunne ükski riik sõpru. Luures on riikide huvid.
Now we can say that Simm himself was checking up on others, but no one was properly checking up on him. Before the beginning of his international career, not only Estonia vetted Simm.
Ma usun, et minu peal on teinud vähemalt 3 minu andmetel, aga võib-olla ka, ma eksin võib-olla ka 5 riigi eriteenistust peale Eesti.
At the same time, some analysts in military intelligence and the security police suspect that there is a leak somewhere. It seems that the Russians know too much about Estonia's national defense.
ja tegime sellel suunal tööd, et leida seda lekke kohta. Aga enamik nendest inimestest, kes selle tööga tegelesid, on kaotanud tänaseks oma koha.
Olid ka teatud kahtlusalused, aga nende hulgas ei olnud Herman Simm. Eks analüüsiti seal välja teatud võimalikud isikud, kes sellega võisid tegeleda, aga nii me teame, et nad olid ausad inimesed.
Ma arvan, et paljud ei eeldanud, et see on Simm, paljud ei eeldanud, et see on nii kõrgel tasemel. Pigem peeti silmas sekretäri, kes kuskil koopiat teeb.
Ta on olnud väga osav. Kas siis teadlikult või ebateadlikult, mis tähtsust, aga ta on olnud väga loomulik.
In the spring of 2002, there is a significant change in Simm's hidden career. His contact man, Valery Zintsov, retires. So the master agent has to be handed over to a new resident. An important meeting is organized in a Tallinn suburb in the Nome railway station.
Kohtumise koht oli eelnevalt vana residendiga kokku lepitud. Kohtumise koht, kohtumise kellaaeg ja kohtumise päev. Ehk siis see kohtumise koht oli täpselt siin.
The only thing that Simm knows about his new contact person is his first name, Antonio, and his general description.
Tema teadis minu fotot, mina teadsin tema andmeid.
A greeting routine had been agreed upon.
Hermanile oli antud instruktaaž selle kohta, et kui ta tuleb jaama ja kõik on korras, siis tal üle vasaku õla on kandekott ja see tähendab seda, et kõik on korras, ohtu ei ole. Kui kandekott on tal käes, siis on ohuga tegu ja kohtumist ei toimu. Hermani juurde pidi astuma Antonia, ütlema lühidalt parooli, mis oli eelnevalt kokku lepitud. Herman pidi selle vastama oma parooliga, mis ta oli samuti öeldud, ja see oli siis kokkuleppeks.
The mysterious Antonio is actually Russian foreign intelligence officer Sergei Yakovlev. He's higher class material than the previous contact agent. To use espionage parlance, an illegal. This specially trained spy appears as a Portuguese businessman looking for investment opportunities. His false identity, Antonio de Jesus Amoret Graf, doesn't connect him in any way with Russia or Russian intelligence.
Selle alla pannakse väga suured ressursid ja see on valdkond ehk siis sellest illegaalide maailmast praktiliselt mitte kunagi kusagil ei räägita. See on, ütleme siis, salajane üksus salajase üksuse sees. Ja seal tõesti töötavad professionaalid sellepärast, et sulle luuakse uus identiteet ja selle identiteedi alusel sa hakkad täitma oma luureülesandeid. Sergei Yakovlevi näol oli tegu reisiva illegaaliga, ehk siis ta tegi oma kohtumised erinevates riikides ära teatud perioodi jooksul ja suundus tagasi jälle Venemaale.
At first, Simm meets his new case officer in Estonia, but they soon find it would be safer to meet abroad. This is made easier by the fact that a large part of Simm's work is traveling and that he carries a diplomatic passport.
Tegelikult oleks pidanud küsima siis, kas Simm tahab nii palju välismaal käia sellepärast, et talle meeldib reisida ja on tore riigi kulul elada heades hotellides. Või on sellel mingid muud põhjused?
Oli perioode, kus ma tegelikult päris tõsiselt nagu küsisin, et on sul vaja minna, sellepärast et Herman hakkas välislähetustes käima argumendiga, et ta peab diplomaatilist posti või seda meie enda salastatud posti vedama ja et tema on ainukene, kes täidab neid kriteeriumid, mis selle posti vedamiseks nagu vaja. Ja tegelikult oli see nagu õige väide. Küsimus oli lihtsalt selles, et kas seda nii tihti pidi vedama.
At the same time, when Simm takes confidential mail to NATO headquarters in Brussels, he has a subsequent clandestine meeting with Antonio. There are appropriate techniques for doing this.
Teatud kohast sa pidid teatud kellal täpselt mööda minema, mitte seal passima.
Simm, for instance, walks at a previously agreed upon time past a red mailbox on the corner of a street of galleries.
siis oli visuaalne kontakt. Ja edasi liikusid oma teed nii kaua, kui su juurde tuldi. Ja öeldi, kuhu minna.
Wife, Hette Simm, accompanies him on several trips and even walks with Herman before his meetings. Herman tells his wife that by walking around, they're just killing time. Actually, they're losing possible followers. By the time of the secret meeting, Herman sends Hette shopping.
Naistel on ikka kuskil poes käia või midagi teha, aga üks põhimõte oli, mitte kunagi, mitte kordagi ei ole ta kuskil kellegiga kohtunud. Ja tema nendest asjadest ei kujutanud üldse midagi ette.
If Antonio is convinced that there is no danger, he approaches Herman. The men walk to a park and finally eat together at a restaurant. No meeting lasts more than a couple of hours. At first, it was suspected that Hette was aware of the treasonous activity. For instance, a security camera picks them up at the Parnu City Hall when Simm leaves his wife waiting in the car and goes to a payphone to leave Antonio a message. The wife should have been curious about why Herman is using a payphone if he has a mobile phone in his pocket.
Abikaasa pidi aru saama, et tema mehel välisreisidel tekivad mingisugused rahasummad. Ta pidi aru saama, et teostatakse vastuvaatlust, sest on mõeldamatu, kui ühte ja sama marsruuti korduvalt läbitakse, siis tekib alati abikaasale küsimus, et millega sa tegeled.
Ta ei teadnud seda, et ma töötan Vene luurekasuks. Ta ei aimanud seda.
Afterwards, it was determined that Simm met with his case officer in at least 15 countries, basically in Central Europe, Scandinavia, as well as Latvia and Lithuania. They usually talked in some bar or cafe. Simm is paid for his efforts in cash. According to him, his pay for treason was at first $400 and finally 1,000 euros a month. Even when taking into consideration Estonian economic conditions in the 90s, this is a paltry sum.
Ta oli midagi ole parata, väga odav agent venelaste jaoks.
In March of 2004, 7 East European former socialist states, among them Estonian, with its population of 1.3 million and an army of 5,000, are accepted into the world's biggest military alliance. The newcomers are greeted by the resident of the White House personally.
We welcome them into the ranks of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Our 7 new members have built free institutions. They've increased their military capabilities in the span of a decade. They are stronger nations because of that remarkable effort, and the NATO alliance is made stronger by their presence.
A year later, Simm is awarded by the Estonian president the White Star 4th Class Medal for his role in NATO accession.
Olete oma meisterlikkuse või vaprusega andnud Eestile tänase näo. Tänan teid suure pühendumise eest.
Actually, by that time, he has for almost 10 years been building with one hand, but secretly destroying with the other. But the situation is so schizophrenic that the Russians also award Simm for his good work.
Midagi ole parata, tegu oli küllaltki edeva inimesega ja kuna tema profiil oli hästi tehtud, siis ta läks selle edevuse õnge. Ühel kohtumisel Sergei Jakovleviga näidati talle arvutist medalit. Talle selgitati, et see on SVR-i teenelise kaastöötaja medal, mis kindlasti tekitas temas positiivseid emotsioone, et teda on nii kõrgelt hinnatud. Aga see oli ainult virtuaalsel kujul. Füüsiliselt sellist medalit ta pole kunagi kätte saanud. Ja me ei oska öelda, kas füüsiliselt ka selline medal üldse olemas on.
Herman Simm plays a successful double game for a total of 13 years.
Simm säilis oma spiooni ametis nii pikalt põhiliselt kahel põhjusel. Esiteks oli tal täiesti ideaalne amet taolist asja teha. Ta ei pidanud kunagi minema kuskile dokumente varastama. Tal oli täiesti ametijärgne juurdepääs kõigele salajasele Kaitseministeeriumist. Ta pidigi neid dokumente hoidma. Ta pidigi käima öösel kontrollimas Kaitseministeeriumis, kas kõik dokumendid on laudadelt kadunud. Ja ta pidigi neid välismaale tassima. Teiseks ta lõpetas ju väga varakult igasugused kontaktid venelastega Eestis. Mistõttu tema kontrollimine Eestis ei saanudki anda mingisugust tulemust. Nii et ta oli praktiliselt ideaalses asendis, et spioneerida ükskõik kelle kasuks.
A year before being apprehended, in August 2007, Herman Simm gives his hometown church a chandelier. This generous act is preserved on a correspondent's photo, who happened to be there at the moment. This gift, being presented exactly 40 years after the confirmation ceremony, is like a symbol of the lifelong double game that this Gemini had played. At this point, counterintelligence is already investigating him, and according to Herman, he even sensed it.
Hirmu kui sellist. Ma teadsin, et varem või hiljem see juhtub. Ja kui selle peale iga päev ei mõtle, sel ei ole mõtet.
According to unconfirmed sources, the unraveling began in Lithuania, where SVR officer Yakolev, using the fake Portuguese passport in the name of Antonio de Jesus Amoret Graf, makes a mistake. Reportedly, the phony Portuguese tries to recruit a Lithuanian working in European administrative structures, who reports this to his country's special services.
If it's true that the intelligence officer who was running him, Yakovlev, was trying to recruit other people, it would be absolute rule in espionage, one intelligence officer, one agent for someone of that importance, because you don't want to endanger what you've got by making a failed attempt to recruit someone else. So that's another big puzzle why that happened.
By checking all of Graf's contacts, the counter-spies, to their surprise, stumble upon the keeper of Estonia's secrets. A large-scale international operation is launched.
This extraordinary international intelligence cooperation between the countries of old Europe, the countries of new Europe, countries that sometimes didn't have previously much dealings with each other, but having to put a lot of trust in the Estonians' ability to track Simm, to collect the evidence without giving him any sign that he was under scrutiny, because obviously they didn't want him disappearing and going off to Russia. And that was a tremendous success. So although in a sense the Simm story starts with a tragedy and a disaster, to some extent it ends with a triumph.
In the middle of September 2008, 3 days before being arrested, Herman receives a mobile phone call from Yakolev. Something is very wrong if a professional intelligence officer so blatantly breaks all tradecraft rules. Basically, this is an emergency call. Yakolev, who claims to be in Turkey, warns that he is apparently being followed and that they have been exposed. The Estonian security police, Kapo, is listening to this call. Simm realizes that this is probably the end. There's no point in trying to escape.
Aga kuhu mul minna oleks olnud? Venemaale, kelleks? Milleks? Ma olin ju lõpetanud praktiliselt. See tähendas seda, et minu turuväärtus oli kuskil niimoodi allapoole nulli juba.
The best thing that he can do is pretend that nothing's wrong. Herman Simm spends his last minutes of freedom in a small-town department store. Together with his wife, he buys baked goods for his mother-in-law's birthday, but actually, he's been surrounded. Just in case Herman's heart should give up due to shock, there is an ambulance waiting in a side street. apprehension of the Simms in front of the shopping center takes only 20 seconds, and passers-by don't notice anything.
Loomulikult eelnevalt tegime päris täpse tema psühholoogilise profiili ära, et kuidas oleks nagu kõige mõistlikum sellise inimesega käituda. Sest ma kordan veel kord, meie jaoks oli oluline võimalikult kiiresti ta rääkima panna.
Ma aitame teil siia panna. Pane ära sisse üks minut. Aidake abikaasat, olge head. Astuge mulle sinna poole 2 minutit rääkida.
Hete and Herman are placed in separate cars. This is where the first and most important conversation takes place.
Tema ei rääkinudki midagi. Rääkisin ainult 10 minutit mina. Ja 10 minuti pärast oli ta valmis koostööd tegema.
Kuna mulle oli antud juhis kinni kukkumisel, on mu enda ülesanne, kuidas välja rabeleda või mida teha. Mul oli see mõttes läbi mängitud. Mul ei olnud siin midagi.
They drive on to the Simm summer home, where they find dozens of documents with various security classifications.
Leidsime piisavalt tõendeid, mis kinnitasid seda, et tegu on riigireeturiga. Alates tehnilistest vahenditest, alates dokumentidest, alates šifritest, kõik leidsime üles, mis meil vaja leida oli ja saime ka vastuse kõikidele oma küsimustele, mis meid väga huvitas.
A true jackpot awaits those who search the Simm Saue home. In one briefcase, they find many espionage tools, various calling and memory cards. This Eastern pillbox was the hiding place for a memory card. Yakolev used this notebook to give Simm his agent's pay. Besides the hiding places, the most exciting things are the seemingly incidental pieces of paper. Sergei Yakolev tore them from his notebook to write down codes for Simm. Here, they managed to find the Russian resident's DNA. This spy mystery is far from clear. When the Estonian keeper of the secrets is arrested, then this story's other, and in the opinion of many experts, more essential character, SVR officer Sergei Yakolev, disappears into thin air. If Simm and his case officer had been under constant observation, then where did the Russian officer, who should have been an even bigger catch, manage to disappear too?
Yakolev on seal, kus ta on.
But Yakovlev is a very mysterious figure. For an agent of Simm's importance, what we know is an extraordinarily sloppy seeming, I say seeming because we don't really know the details, way of running someone. You would expect if you had a spy inside NATO of that importance that there would be a very conscientious and careful way of running him. You would have someone with a really good identity, someone perhaps who had a reason to meet Simm from time to time.
Something in this story doesn't click. The information that has been released up till now about Simm's case officer is weird. For instance, his Portuguese identity and businessman legend don't even bear criticism.
This guy had a really unusual name, a name that you would remember. Jesus, perhaps the most memorable name in the world, and then a German noble surname, and then this weird thing that sounds like a drink, amaretto, in the middle. This is one that sticks in the memory, which is not what you want. The business cover story didn't really stand up. Anyone doing any investigation of this guy would see that this was not a proper business. So I think it was either very sloppy work by the Russians, or maybe there's more that we don't know, and we just have to wait and hope that more details come out. But I believe we have not yet had the full story of Mr. Yakovlev and his dealings with Mr. Simm.
Many people, including Simm himself, claim that Yakolev was also apprehended, or he at least cooperated with Western intelligence for a time. But this has been covered up. This would of course explain why he is not being searched for very actively. On February 25, 2009, the Harju County Court passes, at a closed session, an agreement verdict. Apparently, Herman's guilty plea is one reason why his wife is not charged. Herman Simm was released due to lack of evidence, and after 2 months left jail a free woman. Despite the fact that several approaches were made, she had no wish to make any comments for this film. This is Re-Independent Estonia's first case of treason. Simm is given a 12.5-year prison sentence and a 21 million kron fine, which means personal bankruptcy. His real estate, as well as his small art and coin collection, will be auctioned off. Simm's home is now a solitary cell in Tartu prison. And Vaike has saved all the newspapers in which there's material about her foster son's scandal, but she doesn't want to see him face to face.
Siin on Erman ja kindlasti on siin sees ka, kui juba kaane peal on. Jään kandma Eesti riigi reeturi tiitlit surmani. Ja siin on ka kohe tema kaane peal. Siis peab sees ka siin olema, kui juba kaane peal on. Herman mõisteti Vene luure heaks töötamise eest 12 aastat on kätt. Vaatame, mis siin sees on. Siin on näete juba kohtupingis või vangis või Herman Simm läks reetmise teele, et leida tunnustust. Üks niisugune artikkel. Miks ta pettis meid kõiki? See on pettus ju. See ei ole aus. Ma arvasin, et ta on aus inimene, aga ta ei ole aus. Ta ei olnud aus. Mängis kahte. Kuidas inimene saab olla korraga 2 inimest? Üks on reeturi ja teine on siis isamaalane.
Herman Simm, who is now behind bars, is rather defiant and even a little proud. He will presumably be released in the year 2021.
Kuidas te kujutate minu elu edasi peale vabanemist Eestis, kus kõik tunnevad kõiki? Hea meelega ma loovutaks selle kuulsuses mõnele teisele inimesele.
Not once in the course of the 8-hour interview does the traitor regret what he has done. He claims that he has asked God himself to forgive him his sins.